In certain homes, pleasure is never treated as urgent. Not forbidden, not demonized, just delayed. A child asks for something. The answer is not emotional, not angry, not indulgent. It's calm. Not now. We'll wait. Later. No explanation follows, and that silence teaches more than words ever could. Most people misunderstand delayed pleasure. They think it's about discipline, self-control, saying no. But rich parents don't teach delay to create obedient children. They teach it to create unshakable adults. Because the ability to delay pleasure is not a moral trait, it's a power trait. In many homes, pleasure is used as relief. A hard day? Buy something. Feeling stressed? Consume something. Feeling behind? Escape something. Children raised this way learn a dangerous pattern early: emotion to consumption. Rich parents interrupt that pattern before it hardens. In wealthy households, pleasure is decoupled from emotion. A child doesn't get rewarded immediately for being uncomfortable. They don't get soothed instantly for feeling bored. They don't get entertainment on demand. This is not cruelty, it is training. The child learns something quietly. Discomfort does not mean emergency. Waiting does not mean loss. Desire does not require action. These lessons sink deep. Rich parents understand something most people never articulate. The world is designed to reward people who can wait. Deals go to those who don't rush. Negotiations favor those who don't blink. Opportunities flow to those who don't need them immediately. Delay creates leverage. At home, this training begins in small, almost invisible ways. A child wants a toy. They are told to wait. A child wants dessert. They finish dinner first. A child wants attention. They are asked to sit quietly. Nothing dramatic, but repetition is everything. In many households, denying pleasure feels mean. Parents worry. What if my child feels deprived? What if they feel unloved? Rich parents worry about something else entirely. What if my child becomes reactive? Because reactive adults are controllable adults. A child who needs immediate gratification is easy to manipulate. They can be rushed. They can be baited. They can be pressured. Rich parents remove this weakness early. Another subtle lesson appears around visibility. In wealthy homes, children are not taught to show everything they enjoy. They don't broadcast excitement. They don't perform happiness. They don't announce rewards. Pleasure is private. This teaches discretion. In contrast, many children grow up learning to display enjoyment publicly. Look at this. Notice me. Validate me. This creates adults who trade pleasure for approval. Rich parents don't allow that trade. Delayed pleasure also reshapes how children view time. In most homes, time feels urgent. Before it's gone, while we still can. Don't miss out. Rich parents speak differently. There's no rush. It will still be there. We can wait. This teaches something profound. Time is not an enemy. When time is not feared, decision-making improves. Children raised this way don't feel behind. They don't chase trends. They don't panic at comparison. They don't rush life milestones. They move when it makes sense, not when pressure appears. Delayed pleasure also changes how children understand value. Instant rewards feel cheap. Waiting makes outcomes heavier. A child who waits months for something doesn't treat it casually. They respect it. This builds appreciation without entitlement. Rich parents are careful not to turn delay into punishment. They never say, "You don't deserve this." They say, "Not yet." This preserves self-worth while still training patience. Another quiet lesson appears in money conversations. In many homes, money is spent to create happiness quickly. Retail therapy, impulse buys, lifestyle inflation. Children absorb this. Money equals pleasure. In wealthy homes, money is used deliberately, not to soothe emotions, not to impress others, not to escape boredom. Children see purchases discussed, delayed, reconsidered. They learn that money is not for instant comfort, it is for long-term positioning. This is why rich kids don't rush spending when they grow up. They don't feel deprived by waiting. Waiting feels normal. Delayed pleasure also builds emotional strength. A child learns they can want something and survive not having it immediately. This creates inner stability. Later in life, rejection doesn't shatter them. delays don't panic them. Uncertainty doesn't paralyze them. Most people crumble under delay. They feel ignored, disrespected, left behind. Rich kids were trained to sit inside that feeling without reacting. This training shows up dramatically in adulthood. When others panic during uncertainty, they pause. When others overspend during excitement, they wait. When others rush into relationships, investments, or decisions, they delay. And delay protects them. Another hidden benefit appears. Delayed pleasure breaks addiction patterns. Addiction thrives on immediacy. Now, instant, fast relief. Children raised with delay are less vulnerable to this cycle. They don't seek constant stimulation. Silence doesn't scare them. Rich parents understand something most people overlook. A child who cannot tolerate boredom will chase stimulation forever. That chase never ends well. So boredom is allowed. Waiting is normalized. Stillness is not treated as a problem. This builds adults who can focus for years. Delayed pleasure also strengthens identity. When pleasure is constant, identity becomes fragile. I am what I enjoy. I am what I consume. Rich parents avoid this trap. Children are taught, you are who you are, not what you get. This separation creates adults who don't chase luxury to feel important. They don't need to prove success through consumption. They are harder to influence. By the time these children reach adolescence, the difference is visible. They don't chase popularity. They don't rush milestones. They don't need instant validation. They are comfortable being early or late. Most people think rich kids are spoiled. The opposite is often true. They are conditioned to wait, conditioned to endure, conditioned to plan long. And this is only the beginning, because in part 2, we'll expose what delayed pleasure creates later in life, why rich adults outlast others, why they win long games without appearing aggressive, why they don't collapse under temptation, pressure, or envy. That's where the real payoff appears. By the time a child raised this way becomes an adult, the results are not loud. They are not obvious on social media. They don't show up as flashy confidence or constant wins. They show up in what doesn't break them. When temptation appears, most people struggle internally. They feel torn. They bargain with themselves. They rationalize. Rich adults don't experience that same friction, not because they are morally superior, but because their nervous system was trained early. Delay feels normal to them. This is the part people misunderstand. Delayed pleasure is not about denying yourself joy forever. It's about choosing the timing of joy, and timing is power. In adulthood, this conditioning reveals itself in decision-making. Most people make decisions to relieve discomfort. They quit because they're tired. They spend because they're stressed. They commit because they're lonely. They rush because they're anxious. Rich adults don't. They can sit with discomfort without needing to escape it. That single ability separates outcomes more than intelligence ever will. This is why rich parents don't panic when their children are bored. They know boredom is training. A bored child learns to regulate themselves. A constantly stimulated child learns to depend on external relief. Only one of those becomes dangerous later in life. Delayed pleasure also changes how ambition works. Most people chase quick wins because they need proof. Proof that they're progressing. Proof that they're not behind. Proof that their effort matters. Rich adults don't need constant proof. They can work in silence for years. That's terrifying to competitors. Because the person who doesn't need immediate reward cannot be rushed, cannot be pressured, cannot be baited. They decide when the payoff happens. This is why rich adults often seem boring early on. They don't chase trends. They don't jump into hype cycles. They don't react emotionally to opportunity. They wait. And while others exhaust themselves chasing short-term highs, they accumulate position. Delayed pleasure also reshapes how success feels. Most people feel success as relief. I finally made it. I can relax now. I can stop trying. That relief mindset creates decline. Rich adults feel success as permission to stay disciplined. They don't loosen standards when they win. They tighten them, because discipline to them is not punishment, it's protection. This is why wealth often disappears when discipline disappears. The moment pleasure becomes automatic, position erodes. Rich parents know this. That's why they never let pleasure arrive too easily, even when they can afford it.
Another long-term effect of delayed pleasure is emotional insulation. Rich adults don't tie their mood to outcomes. A deal failing doesn't collapse them. A delay doesn't humiliate them. A rejection doesn't define them. They learned early that wanting something and not getting it immediately does not threaten identity. That lesson alone prevents self-destruction. Most people aren't destroyed by failure. They're destroyed by impatience. They abandon long-term paths for short-term relief. They quit before compounding begins. Rich parents protect their children from this trap early. Delayed pleasure also influences relationships. People who need immediate gratification struggle with boundaries. They rush intimacy. They overshare. They overcommit. They tolerate disrespect to avoid loneliness. Rich adults move differently. They are selective. They don't need instant connection to feel whole. This makes them harder to manipulate emotionally.